This looks like a regular peaks, right? Soon enough, it will change your mind. Because nature has decided to carve it into the most peculiar sculpture found in China, the Yangyuanxi rock. It rises 28 meters high and is 7 meters in diameter. The resemblance is uncanny, but there are more. A herd of elephants crossing the river, a seal proudly raising its head, the hat of a revered monk, the teapot of a literary celebrity. This is a UNESCO World Natural Heritage Site in Shaoguan of Guangdong Province, Danxia. Here you can see the most typical and abundant Danxia landscape in the world. How was it formed? Today, let's explain this clearly from a scientific perspective. More than 680 peculiar peaks and rocks at the Shaoguan Danxia and 1,100 other similar landforms across the country together form the exquisite scarlet landscape of China. They share the same name, China Danxia landscape. What is the Danxia landscape? First, it must be red in color, like the sunset glow. Look at this. The beddings are quite prominent. Does it look like clouds dyed in red? But this is not all of it. If we lift the entire mountain range from the ground, this red stratum extends almost 4,000 meters thick. It is almost as thick as 6 Canton towers stacked on top of each other. For millennia, it endured the relentless scouring by ancient rivers and the deafening howls of ferocious gales. The Danxia is located in Danxia Basin. Over millennia, rivers originating from nearby mountain ranges continuously converged and deposited sediment in the basin. Strong gales also supplemented layers of sand to the sediment. As the iron-rich layers became oxidized, a thick stratum with red stripes gradually took form. But to qualify as the Danxia landscape, the landform must be not just red, but also has a steep slope. The famous Zhangye Danxia is in fact a misconception. It has softer rocks and gentler slopes. In geomorphology, it is known as the Kaichu landform, or colorful hills, and not the Danxia landscape. The Danxia landscape slopes are typically steeper than 60 degrees. Such steep slopes are created by weathering and erosion processes, which carves rocks like sharp blades. Look, this dense network of gullies is the result of chronic erosion by flowing water. At the gully bed, one may find strange rocks that look like a 6-fingered hand or a beer bottle. And look at these boulders. They were initially on the mountains, but gradually lost balance and fell down because of weathering and erosion. Just like that, an enormous mountain was slowly cut into pieces. Sometimes it manifests as twin peaks, other times a lonely column. This was how the Yangyuanxi was separated from the Yangyuanshan. It seems most of these rock columns have a square base or other irregular edges. Why does the Yangyuanxi rock has a cylindrical shape? For square columns, their edges are always the most affected by weathering and erosion. Eventually, they are smoothened by the constant grinding into cylindrical columns. Another special feature is the varying lithology of the rock beds in these columns. The softer layers undergo more weathering and erosion than the harder counterparts, resulting in uneven surfaces along the column face. Over time, tectonic movement, weathering and erosion, gravitational collapse, and many other natural forces created a bizarre collection of rock formations on the Danxia Shan. The ancients once exclaimed, "The breathtaking sight of rocks and clouds on the Danxia Shan is one of a kind." Across China, there are almost thousands of Danxia landscapes in total. Together, they brighten up the vast country with its unique tone of red. It can be said that Danxia is what gives China her signature scarlet landscapes. The Danxia landscape is not just a scenery. It is a cluster of lofty mountains where each peak stands like an isolated island. In between the peaks are numerous closed gullies, which offer excellent hydrothermal conditions for vegetations and wildlife. Predators like black kites, wild boars, and ocelots also inhabit these areas. While not comparable with the Hengduanshan or Qinling as an ecological barrier, Danxia Shan still allows a certain extent of ecological speciation. Look, this plant with an ordinary look is a new species native to the Danxia landscape. Different from its homologous plants, it has unique leaves and flowers. So botanists gave it a lovely name, Danxia primulina. And this plant here is a new species only recently discovered in March 2025. Although its fruit shape is very similar to a plant called bean pear, it is enough to thrive on dry, steep slopes with short leaves, petioles, and dense stem thorns. It is called Pyrus jiaoshuani. Can you imagine how many more undiscovered species are living under the shelter of the Danxia landscape? But one thing is for sure. Without Danxia, China will lose her unique kingdom of exotic species. Moreover, more than 5,000 years ago, caves in the Danxia were already a safe shelter for local residents. Later on, immigrants came to the Danxia to build their homes on the steep slopes to stay away from wars. Later still, scholars and poets including Zhang Juling, Han Yu, Su Shi, and Yang Wanli also wrote down the well-known poems here as they toured the stunning landscape. There were also countless monks and practitioners who came to the mountain to build grottos and monasteries. The affection for the Danxia landscape is widespread across China. The Meijishan Grottos, one of the 4 major grottos in China, the Leshan Giant Buddha, the world's largest cliff-carved statue, and the Tiantishan Grottos, the originator of Chinese grottos, were all built on the Danxia landscapes. Therefore, Danxia symbolizes the spiritual homeland of the Chinese people. In 1927, when Chinese geographer Feng Jinglin was surveying the Danxia mountain near Shaoguan in Guangdong province, he named the landscape Danxia from the name of the mountain. Since then, Chinese geographers have been tracking down Danxia all over China, establishing a scientific knowledge system and introducing it to the world. Thanks to their efforts, the Danxia in Shaoguan and 5 other Danxia landscape sites are listed as World Natural Heritage Sites by the name of China Danxia. Why China? Perhaps only the Chinese people will become so passionately attached to these scarlet rocks. Perhaps only Chinese are romantic enough to give it such a poetic name. The everlasting sunset hue, the flameless fire of the land, China Danxia landscape.